Welcome back. Mudar Pratap Singh, you're joining us on NewsX. Our big focus this hour on the eve of his inauguration at the U.S. Capitol. Donald Trump has vowed to declassify the documents related to the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. Notably, Trump had made a similar promise during his first term at the White House from 2017 to 2021. In fact, he did end up releasing some documents related to JFK's killing, with the assassination of the former U.S. president, who was traveling in his motorcade in Dallas in 1963, still largely remains the subject of speculation and theories. And why is that so? The assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was killed 2 days after shooting Kennedy. He was in fact shot at by a nightclub owner, Jack Ruby, on live television. He claimed that he was the fall guy, and this chain of events still causes many to speculate that a cover-up took place. So why are we discussing this now? Well, in India too, the fight over the Bose and Chastity files is on. So what skeletons do we all have? And will now the JFK files be finally out? Joining us live at this point is Javier Rodriguez, Editor-in-Chief, Goa Chronicle. Also with us is Dr. Swasti Rao, Fellow MP, IDSA. Gautam Mukherjee, Senior Journalist, is joining us live. Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins the broadcast. Javier Rodriguez, do you believe that we are going to see historic decisions taken during the Donald Trump presidency, which is all set to begin very, very shortly? Could the JFK files be declassified?
World to know what exactly has happened. It's important for the world to know what exactly has happened as far as the assassination of JFK was considered, because it is and continues to remain a mystery. The mystery of even political assassinations in India need to be investigated, because at the end of the day, what Donald Trump is trying to do is to show the rest of the world the existence of a deep state that works to eliminating key political leaders that are against their vested interests. Donald Trump himself was a victim of three attacks against him in the course of the election campaigning. So he understands that there is a nexus of business leaders and political leaders who come under what is considered to be the deep state. And that deep state needs to be investigated, because primarily they have been working with an agenda that goes mostly against most nations and tends to work towards an economic benefit to people involved in it. So one of the key characters that Donald Trump has been very vocal about, and even Elon Musk, has been George Soros. And we all know that George Soros is an economic terrorist, and George Soros himself has got very, very deep roots and intent as far as India is concerned, and wanting to destabilize the Indian government. So when you look at the JFK, and if you studied whatever's happened during that time, and you look at this beautiful movie in which Kevin Costner was acting, directed by Oliver Stone, you would realize that there were so many things that were left unanswered, so many things that exposed what is essentially the deep state, the working of business houses vis-a-vis the people within the government, as well as within the army that had come out in that movie. And, there are so many mysteries left. Even John F. Kennedy's brother's assassination later, was something that is left with a question mark. So why is it important to make those classified files open, is so that the people of the world realizes what happened to the President of the United States, as well as in concerns with India. All classified files should be made known. The investigation should be completed, because even now the questions over the death of Rajiv Gandhi, who was a former prime minister, still has left many questions unanswered. There are many political leaders, especially in the South, who are still connected or were connected or were considered to be, friendly with those responsible for the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. And these are things that need to be looked at, and the people need to know the truth. And as long as Donald Trump continues to be in power, which he plans to for quite some time, he is going to ensure disruptions as far as the deep state is concerned. And those disruptions may or may not benefit India, but they will certainly benefit his intent of making America great again, because he's going to ensure he destabilizes the deep state that is currently prevalent in the world and currently prevalent in the US.
Absolutely. In fact, also, Dr. Swasti Rao, if we expand that a bit, Donald Trump has actually promised, to declassify all the Kennedy files and also other files, including those on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. too. How big a move would this be for the United States of America? Dr. Rao, can you hear me? Okay, I think we've lost him there. Gautam Mukherjee, let me draw you in here on that very question. How big a moment would this be for the US if actually this promise is followed through on?
Well, Robert Kennedy Jr. is on his team and has been pressing for the declassification, the complete declassification of the JFK, the RFK, and I think Trump on his own wants to declassify the Martin Luther King files. It is widely believed, a lot of people behind these deaths over and above the actual gunman. And it has always been a matter of conjecture and cover-up ever since. And so Trump's ambition is to do something about wokeism, is to do something about the functioning of the deep state, and clean it up, what he calls the Washington swamp. He called that the Washington swamp in his term one, and he wants to do it again now. As such, it's a very good move. What will actually come out is another matter. I mean, just as in the case of Netaji Bose, we did classify a lot of papers. We still don't know whether he survived that crash in Taiwan, whether he went to Taiwan that day, whether he went to Russia, and it goes on in the realm of, conjecture and fantasy, even today, even after the declassification. However, these are national icons, and they had a profound effect in the 60s on the way the political development of America took place, the civil rights movement, the democratization of America in many ways under JFK and RFK. And so to bring it out is a good move. The fact that a Republican president, one who emulates in some ways Ronald Reagan, both in terms of popularity and in terms of boldness, perhaps he will actually be the boldest and the most dynamic president that America has seen in this century. Let us see what the effects of these are. There will be controversies, but will they be conclusive? That I don't know.
Yes, will there be closure or not? That, of course, is the big question. Professor Madhav Nalapat, quickly drawing you in here. Is this declassification likely, according to you? What will be the ramifications of it if it does happen?
Well, I think it will be quite certain. The fact is that Donald Trump in his first term relied largely on establishment figures to fill key slots in his initial administration. And they made it their job to sabotage him, not to carry forward his policies. So this time around, it's very different. It's a very different Donald Trump, a very different team he's chosen. And he hasn't chosen people from, quote unquote, the swamp, which unfortunately he did in very significant roles in his last administration. And consequently, we all know what happened. I mean, he was sabotaged. And after he was defeated by Joe Biden, many of those people who sabotaged it within his own government proudly confessed in books also, in articles, in interviews, that yes, we sabotaged this man because we felt he was dangerous for America. And may I point out that the JFK assassination has been linked to two issues. One of the hypotheses is basically the CIA role in the Bay of Pigs operation. And I think President Nixon also alluded to that in his tapes, Bay of Pigs, warned the CIA that Bay of Pigs is there. In other words, that he may release Bay of Pigs data. The other is Vietnam. It was very clear that in the last 5 or 6 months of his term, John F. Kennedy understood that America was in a quagmire in Vietnam. It was sending people, sending and losing money, and basically creating a situation which is unwinnable. Finally, of course, it did happen, but many years, many lives, including very many Vietnamese lives later, he promised to end the war, in effect, to his own circle. And he made it very clear in public that he doesn't believe that Vietnam, frankly, is going the right way, South Vietnam. And essentially, he was hinting at cutting back the US troop presence. So there's a theory that was linked to that. The assassination was linked to that. The theory there was another gunman who really fired the fatal bullet, and Lee Harvey Oswald was, in his own language, basically a patsy, somebody who took the rap for something he really did not do. I don't know if that's, but we'll find out when the files are open. RFK basically fought the mafia. He was completely waging a huge war against the mafia. He was Attorney General of the United States, waging huge, and the mafia figures were angry with him. And of course, all of them had their political connections and other connections. And there's a theory that it was the mafia that was behind the assassination of RFK. Now, when we're talking about Martin Luther King, it's very interesting because there's widespread. I mean, I've been talking to people who are fairly knowledgeable about inside the US about US affairs for quite some time. And they say that a very plausible hypothesis, according to them, is that the King assassination was basically on the instructions of J. Edgar Hoover, a long-term, a very, 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 very long-term life chief of the FBI, because Hoover felt that he was a Soviet agent. Martin Luther King was a communist agent. And if you remember, there was a talk of a communist conspiracy. The McCarthyism was basically, going all over the place, which is basically leveling false charges against people. And Martin Luther King was nothing but an American, a proud patriot who wanted justice for his people. But J. Edgar Hoover believed that he was a communist agent, he was a Soviet agent, and there's a lot of speculation that he's the one who basically ordered the hit. I don't know if this is true or not, but one thing let's not forget, Uday, Donald Trump knows what's in those files. He was president of the United States. He was dissuaded from releasing them by people who said it's going to be too embarrassing, please don't do it. And he said, all right, second term, he's not going to make that same mistake. He is going to release them, and he knows what's in them. And he's not going to be releasing them unless he's very certain there's absolute dynamite.
Absolutely. Professor Nalapad, stay with us. In fact, let me quickly take that back across to Savio Rodriguez now. Savio Rodriguez, coming back to India and, the ramifications here as well. Here too, there has been a big chorus for declassification of all files pertaining to Subhash Chandra Bose and Lal Bahadur Shastri. Now, of course, while your government has made certain strides in that direction, there is still closure awaited, complete closure for both the family members of these two great leaders and admirers of them. Could we expect steps forward in that direction? Could we take a cue from what Donald Trump is planning for his own nation?
I think it's very important for every political leader that has been assassinated, whether it is in America, whether it's in Russia, whether it's any part of the world, including India, that the people of the country need to know what exactly happened. You see, there are many, many forces that work against political leaders that may be working extensively for their country, but going against the intent of certain economic powers that are essentially called the deep state. And that's the problem that we are facing with many people, right? So what you have for you is the need for the government of India, whether it is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, whether it's Lal Bahadur Shastri, whether it's the political leaders from the opposition that have been assassinated as well, for the truth to come out, the investigations to be complete, and the truth to come out. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Let me take that to Dr.
Right.
Swasti Rao. I believe she's also joined us now. Dr. Swasti Rao, I was trying to bring you in here earlier into this discussion on this big claim and big statement and big resolve that Donald Trump has made on declassification. Could it happen? What will the ramifications of this be for the United States and globally?
So very quickly, see, one has to remember that he had made similar promises during his first term, okay? And then he had, in fact, gotten some success in releasing some of the documents, not all of them, particularly with respect to JFK's 1963 assassination. Then even by then, he had kind of bowed down to the pressure, especially from the CIA and the FBI. And there was a significant chunk of documents which were still under wraps because they said that this was national security concerns. Now, I personally do not think that this time around, Donald Trump is going to be successful in unveiling or declassifying every single document, because if you know that there are certain areas in which the CIA themselves have been involved, right? And in fact, this is a claim which has been made by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who believes that CIA was involved in his uncle's death, etc. So I think that this, of course, on the one hand, shows that Donald Trump is serious about making his government more efficient and actually cutting the flab, as he has said many times on record. But at the same time, whether or not is he able to declassify all the documents related with these assassinations is something that I have doubts on. In a more idealistic sense, I do agree that these, and especially things that have happened like so many decades ago, should be made public, and especially those that are in charge should be made accountable, because end of the day, this is the sine qua non of all the processes. But back then, we live in not in an ideal world, and in reality, I do not see a complete declassification. Back to you.
Okay, let me in fact, ask you though very quickly now, Professor Madhav Nalapath, about whether a cue can be taken by India too. We still await closure on many issues, many mysterious deaths, many episodes of our history. Will there be complete declassification here too by an equally determined and with a strong mandate that the Modi government has got now for the third time?
Obviously, there have been factors that are preventing Prime Minister Modi from declassifying several files, like they prevented Trump in his first term, and possibly he will, this term, he'll probably declassify many, if not all of them. But the fact of the matter is, Uday, that the public have a right to know, and the public should be trusted. In a democracy, those in power are there because of the vote of the public. So you're trusting them with your own job, you're trusting them with the governance of the country, and you can't trust them with secrets. In India, we have carried this Official Secrets Act. By the way, it's a British era act, right from the British Raj, and they kept it to make sure their ugly deeds were kept out of sight of the public. Even the Henderson Brooks report on the 1962 debacle is yet to be officially made public, even though it was leaked out. Somebody leaked it, a public spirited citizen. And even then, that report is still not public. As far as Netaji's situation is concerned, I think it's very, very important to ensure that the full, or whatever documents are there, is brought out. There's no question. As far as Shastriji is concerned, whatever documents are there should be brought out. The public should be trusted. And frankly, there are handfuls of people who are looking to protect the reputations of some of the people who they knew or whatever, or people who worked where they are working long ago, and they're trying to protect those reputations by covering up the situation. I think that's wrong. I think very definitely, I certainly hope that Prime Minister Modi in Modi 3.0 is going to declassify almost a large number of files, which so far he has been prevented from doing. Thank you.
Gautam Mukherjee, do you believe that's feasible? It's practical in India too? You're confident, you're bullish about it happening in the US, as you said earlier. What about India? Many mysteries here to linger and remain.
Well, I think, since in India, politically, it is a little easier in many ways because the first 60 years was dominated pretty much by a single party, and much of what took place and is hidden from view is either in British times or under the Congress, and under the Congress even in coalition. And therefore, for the BJP to declassify much of this is probably politically a lot easier. Whereas in America, they've alternated a lot between the Democrats and the Republicans, and the permanent institutions of government, especially the intelligence agencies, are seen to be complicit in many of the murders that took place, and or at least allegedly complicit, and therefore it becomes a little trickier to reveal all, but certainly those that actually show up the Democrats in a bad light will be revealed, I think. And the ones that may not have anything to do with the Democrats, Republican appointments, Republican judges, Republican FBI appointees, and so on, that those papers might not come out. The CIA likewise.
Okay, I'll leave you, Dr. Swasi Rao, the last word on what this means now going forward for the US and India if such declassifications do happen.
Well, very quickly, I think, I completely agree with the point made on accountability. I think the public who actually put these governments in place have the right, and especially after so many decades. So I completely kind of endorse this particular larger point on, the fact that the public is, the stakeholders and the decision makers should be held accountable. Okay, that's one. However, I would still say that all said and done, I do see that Donald Trump has been making several of these statements. I am yet to see, what all statements is he going to deliver on, because the whole world is kind of waiting for him to, take action. But I do see that the Department on governmental efficiency perhaps could have these kind of declassifications on its agenda in a limited sense, or completely. It's something that remains to be seen. I still feel that this would not be complete, in the sense that it would repeat what he did in the first term, which is that he declassified a few of them, and not all, because that probably would be taking it too far. If he actually is able to do it, I would be very happy and surprised. Back to you.
All right, let's leave it at that. My thanks to our guests for joining us on this broadcast. It's time for a very short break.